My eyebrows are a mess right now because I'm trying to grow them out in a desperate attempt to get them to be bushy and thick again. I look wild. Look at this. So much hair. Are you kidding me? Well, hello there, welcome back. Today I'm here to do my February and March wrap up. At least I hope I'm able to do it because it looks like it's gonna rain soon. During the month of February, I hate this fucking word. I only read 5 books in total, so I didn't feel like doing a wrap up for 5 books. So today I'm here to talk to you about the 10 books that I read in February and March. The first book I read was Irresistible by Melanie Harlow, and I didn't like this book. This is about a single father of 3 daughters, and his ex-wife recently left them. Recently as in like a year or so ago. And it's also about Franny, a 20-something-year-old who as a child had a heart condition. I mean, she still has the heart condition, but nowadays it isn't as dangerous as it was back when she was a child. And because of that, she grew up quite sheltered, you know. I think she has like 4 older sisters, and her parents just really sheltered her, you know. They were very overprotective. She was homeschooled her entire life. She never went to college, and as an adult, she both lives and works in her parents' business. They have like a hotel, I think. I can't remember it quite well. And Mac, who is the single dad, also works at a hotel. And every now and then when he has too much work to do, she basically takes care of his daughters. You know, she's kind of like a nanny sometimes. So it is both an age gap romance and a nanny romance, which is fine. I mean, these are typically things that I like to read. I mean, they are kind of taboo, but you know, they can be done well and in an interesting way and in a hot way. But the way it was done here, this just wasn't it. Mac and Franny fall in love. I mean, it says they fall in love, at least. I didn't see it. And they begin this secretive romance, yada yada, you get the gist. The writing in this book was okay, you know, it was nothing wow out of this world, which is fine too, you know, it doesn't need to be. But I don't know, I just didn't like the dynamic between Mac and Franny. I felt like Mac was often very toxic. I'm not sure that's the proper word I'm looking for, but like, I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way that this woman who, even though she is of age, you know, she's nearly 30, she is an adult, she still had a very sheltered life, and she was very naive and very idealistic, you know, very romantic, and she was willing to give a lot to this man, like too much in my opinion. And I just felt like this entire romance was her giving herself over and over again, more and more as time went on, and he just gave very little back. And she would often say that she didn't care, that she knew it was going to be like this, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I don't know if there's something like inherently wrong with the book, or if I just didn't vibe with it. So, you know, take my critique with a grain of salt. I don't know, I just didn't like it. Clearly I can never be a professional book reviewer because that was not a critique. I really didn't like Mac. He was very much a manly man, you know, like both of them I feel were very much traditional gender roles. I don't have time for that. Like, quite frankly, I don't have time for that. I don't know, the way Mac behaved and thought in regards to the reason why they couldn't be together was just so fucking stupid. And it just dragged on for way too long. I couldn't handle it anymore, you know, by the end of the novel, I was so tired. Imagine how tired we are. I did like his daughters, though, so there's that. And every now and then, you know, there were some moments that I liked in the book. But overall, I just didn't click with it, to be quite honest. So I ended up giving Irresistible a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Black Flamingo by Atta. This is a novel in verse. I actually listened to it on audio, and it is narrated by Atta himself. And it follows Michael, who's a black British boy of Greek descent. Greek and Jamaican, if I'm not mistaken. And it basically follows him as he grows up, you know, when him him coming to terms with his own sexuality and his own cultural heritage and his experiences in school and in college, and then also his experience in universities. And when he gets to uni, he finds out about drag and he starts doing drag. And it also follows him as he uses drag to kind of express himself more and to explore his own sexuality and his own idea of gender and art and all that. And this was fucking amazing, okay? I really want to reread it in physical form because I heard there are like drawings on the pages, and obviously through audiobook you don't get drawings. But I would still highly recommend the audiobook. You know, Atta has an amazing voice. It's so soothing and just... it feels like a friend telling you a story, you know. I feel like when I really love a book, it's a little harder for me to express the things that I liked about it and, you know, just how I felt reading it and all that. When I really hate something, I feel like it's easier to just pinpoint everything and just talk about it and rant about it. Maybe it's because I'm a very angry person. I don't know. As opposed to, you know, when I really love something, the feelings are often a lot more complicated and harder to put into words, I guess. But again, this book is amazing. I highly recommend it. I think everyone should read it. It's so fucking good. I gave The Black Flamingo 5 out of 5 stars. Then I listened to Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. The audiobook, again, is narrated by the author. This is another novel in verse, and it follows this guy whose brother was recently murdered by a rival gang member, and so the protagonist has to avenge his brother's death. So he takes a gun, he leaves his apartment, and then he gets into the elevator. But in this elevator, he has this kind of surreal experience, I guess, where every single floor the elevator stops in, someone comes in, and this person is someone from his past or his life or his history, directly or indirectly. And all these people have stories to tell him about how they died. And so this ends up being a story about racism and the cycles of violence, really, especially in regards to gang violence. Because he was gonna kill the person who killed his brother, but the person who killed his brother only did so because his brother killed someone that mattered to that person, and so on and so forth, going back to even before his father and his uncle and all that. This was another amazing read. So fucking good, so well written, and so fucking poignant too, you know. It was incredible. And the end of it,
it's beautiful.
oh, it was amazing. When it finished, I was baffled. I was like, where's the rest of it? But I do understand why it ended at the point that it did, and it made a lot of sense for the story, and I really appreciated what it was trying to say, what it said actually, because I think it was successful in its attempt. But yeah, this is amazing and very powerful, and I highly recommend it. It's also a super quick read. I think the audiobook has around 3 hours, if I'm not mistaken. I gave Long Way Down 5 out of 5 stars, obviously. Then I listened to How Dead the Sun Rise by Sandra Uwiringiyimana. This is a memoir about Sandra's life. She's a member of the Banyamulenge tribe, which is a tribe originally from Rwanda, but that eventually started kind of spreading to neighboring countries, including Congo. And because they kept their traditions, they were considered Rwandan in Congo, despite the fact that they've been there for over 300 years. And after the Rwandan genocide in 1994, the Banyamulenge started being even more persecuted, you know, because they were considered Rwandan too. Sandra talks about living in a war zone and how it, as well as living in an African country, is a lot different than what us Westerners think it is. She talks about her culture and celebrations and school, everything really about how life was there, both the good and the bad. She and her family often had to flee Congo when conflicts broke out, usually to Burundi, so she spent large chunks of her childhood in refugee camps. They would flee to the refugee camps in Burundi and then come back to the house in Congo whenever things got better, I guess. However, when she was 10 years old, they did not return home. Rebels attacked the refugee camp she and her family were at, and they were basically gunning down everyone who was of a different tribe than them. So Sandra, 10 years old, watched her mother and her little sister being gunned down. But when it was her turn, the rebel just miraculously decided not to press the trigger. She talks about everything that happened before, during, and after that moment, including her time living as a stateless refugee along with her surviving family, as well as the time living in the US and becoming American citizens after the UN relocated them. Sandra actually has an amazing TED Talk where she talks about this whole experience, and it's the same title as the book, How Did the Sun Rise. I'm gonna link it down below so you can watch it. I highly recommend it. It's amazing, and if you want to hear more of her story, I highly recommend the audiobook as well. So I rated How Did the Sun Rise 5 out of 5 stars too. It was a very good reading month of it all. Then I read Winterkeep by Kristin Cashore. My god. This was my most anticipated release of the year and my most anticipated read of the year in general. This is the new installment of the Graceling Realm series, which is one of my favorite book series of all time. Before this new installment was announced, the Graceling series was actually the Graceling trilogy, and everyone thought that it was over. Like, the book before this one was published in 2012, if I'm not mistaken, and it is actually my favorite one in the series. But then last year, Kristin Cashore, out of the blue, announced that not only she had one more book in the series coming out in 2021, but she was also writing another, and there was probably going to be even more. I obviously freaked the fuck out, you know, I was so fucking excited, and I got even more excited when I learned that this was gonna be multiple POVs, which never happened before in the series. All the other 3 books were a single POV, but not only that, 2 of the POVs in this book are Bitter Blue and Gideon, and they are some of my favorite characters in the series. I said it before and I'll say it again, I'm Gideon's little bitch. So the 5 POVs here are Bitter Blue Gideon, a new character named Louisa, who is from a different continent altogether, one that we've never seen before in the series. And then the other 2 are not human. One of them is a sea creature with many eyes and many tentacles called the Keeper, and the other is a telepathic fox. How fucking amazing and weird is that? I don't really know how to describe the plot of this book. For the past 5 years, Bitter Blue has reigned as Queen of Muncie, heroically rebuilding her nation after her father's horrific rule. After learning about the land of Tola in the east, she sends envoys to the closest nation there, Winterkeep, a place where telepathic foxes bond with humans and people fly across the sky in wondrous airships. But when the envoys never return, having drowned under suspicious circumstances, Bitter Blue sets off for Winterkeep herself, along with her spy Haver and her trusted colleague Gideon. On the way, tragedy strikes again, a tragedy with devastating political and personal ramifications. Meanwhile, in Winterkeep, Louisa Cavender waits and watches a fire inside her that is always hungry. The teenage daughter of 2 powerful politicians, she is the key to unlocking everything, but only if she's willing to transcend the person she's been all her life. The books in the series are very much character-driven books, you know, it's mostly about the main character's personal journey, personal internal journey, rather than a plot per se. You know, it does have plot, but not that much, if you know what I mean. Like, the plot is more so something to help the character get to the personal journey, but it's also a very theme-driven series. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, every single book has a specific theme or themes that it really explores, you know, throughout the novel. Like, it delves pretty deep into each book's theme. And in this one specifically, I think there are a lot of criticisms to American politics in general, but also about how America takes advantage of other countries and just basically steals their resources, you know, when plays them. And also about how Republicans and Democrats are pretty much 2 sides of the same coin. But also it's about environmentalism and ambientalism and just humanity's relationship with nature and with other living beings. And about how we often view ourselves as the owners of the road, you know, of this planet, and just above all the living beings and above nature and all that. And, you know, we just really take advantage of nature and all the things that it gives us. And we really see ourselves as as superior to all the living beings, especially all the animals. And it's just so fucking amazing. So fucking amazing. But I feel like it's also about breaking generational cycles of abuse and violence and all that. Both in a more personal level, in family relationships, for example, but also in regards to groups you're a part of, both political groups and just societies in general, I think. And it's just so good. It's so fucking good. The characters here are amazing. Lovisa Kavenda hit way too close to home. You know, she grew up the daughter of these two very important politicians, and she has been training and studying to become a politician too. And just about how she has to now make a stand, possibly against her family and against her family's best interests, and what is going to be her choice in regards to that, you know. I'm trying to be very cryptic here so I don't give away spoilers, but like, just trust me, it's very good, it's amazing. Many people were saying that this is now their favorite book in the series. I would say for me personally, this is a very close second. And I also read this for the Kristin Read Along, which I was co-hosting with 3 other amazing booktubers. Lily from Lily Eleanor Reads, and Nidhi from Nidhi Reddy Reads, and Jen from Bookspends Jen. I'm gonna link all the channels down below, and I'm also gonna link the live show we had for Winterkeep on Jen's channel. If you've read the book, watch it. I mean, all modesty aside, it was an amazing discussion. I am really proud of our live shows for the Kristin Read Along, and you know, I would just highly recommend you watch them. We go a lot more in depth in the themes and the characters and the plot in and of itself, and the specific critiques that Kristin Cashore puts here, as well as about how her Catholic upbringing really influenced her novels, especially the Grayson Realm ones. I haven't read her standalone novel yet. And I also loved how some relationships evolved in this one. If you read this and you're seeing the smile in my face, you know what I'm talking about. But I adored the relationships Gideon had with both Bitter Blue and Hava, as well as Katu even. And I adored the relationship that Bitter Blue had with Lovisa, and I adored the relationship Lovisa had with everyone, basically. And it's amazing. And in this household, we stand Adventure Folks. Anyway, I've talked about this one for way too long. Obviously, I give Winterkeep 5 out of 5 stars. I think realistically speaking, like if I was to be objective, it would be more like a 4.5. But I never claim to be objective, so there's that. So yeah, 5 out of 5. Then I reread Rehan the Flame by Hafsah Faizal. I actually buddy read this with Rachel from Reads with Rachel. This is kind of a tongue twister for me. Reads with Rachel. There you go. I'm also going to link her channel down below, obviously, because I really adore it. And I love Rachel. She's a dear friend of mine. But anyway, Rehan the Flame. This was one of my favorite books last year. And I, to this day, can't shut up about it. I honestly think that this book is severely underrated by the bookish community. This is an Arabian-inspired fantasy that follows 2 characters, Zafir and Nazir. They live in Narawiya, which is a world where magic disappeared a long time ago. And Narawiya is surrounded by this thing called the Arts, which is a cursed forest essentially, but it is also covered in darkness, and whoever steps inside the earth basically loses their sanity. One of the main characters, Afida, lives in this very misogynistic country describes it best, so we're gonna go with country. She lives in this very misogynistic country, and she lives in a specific village that is quite poor. But Zafira just so happens to be the only person that we know of that can get inside the arts without losing her sanity. And so every single day she disguises herself as a man, goes inside the arts, and hunts to feed her people. Nazir, on the other hand, is the son of the Sultan. His mother died when he was a child, and they had a very loving relationship, but his father is actually quite abusive to him and has been for the longest time. Nazir is an assassin, and his father basically brainwashed him. So now, even though he knows the things he's doing are wrong. He still believes that he has to do what his father asks him to. He's been conditioned to think that from a very early age. Both main characters are sent on different quests for the same object, which is a book that can allegedly bring magic back to this world. Zafira, because she is basically the only one who can actually track the book, and Nazir, because he has to follow her, get to the book, kill her, and then bring the book back to his father. And you know, shenanigans ensue. I didn't think it was possible, but I loved this book even more the second time around. It has so many tropes that I absolutely adore. It has shadow magic. It has the character who was raised to be a weapon slowly figuring out he's actually human. We've got the cocky, flirty bastard. We've got the ship that begins with one of the characters having to kill the other. Like, I honestly feel like this book was written for me, and no one can convince me otherwise. All the characters in this are absolutely amazing. The magic system is amazing. The world building is amazing. The writing is beautiful. And the main couple, perfection. This is actually the first book in a duology. The second one was released in late January, I think, this year, 2021. I already bought it, and I can't wait to get to it, honestly. It's my second most anticipated read of the year after Winterkeep. And I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars for the second time, so if you haven't read it yet, go pick it up. Then I read The Mothers by Brit Bennett. This was the pick for the Feminist as Fuck book club. Also gonna link all the information on the book club down below, as well as the live show for this one. I actually really love this one. I actually read another book by Brit Bennett last year. It's called The Vanishing Half. I liked it, but I didn't love it. And then I read this one now, and I liked it way more than The Vanishing Half, which is a very unpopular opinion from what I've gathered. This follows 3 people from a Californian little city. California is the state, right? I'm sorry, I don't have to know American geography. I barely know Brazilian geography. The 3 main characters are from the small Californian town, and the 3 of them go to this same church. I don't really remember their names though. One of them is a dude, and he is actually the son of the pastor. Another one is a girl with a very traumatic past who just recently converted to that religion and that church. And the third one, and arguably the main one, is Nadia, the only one whose name I remember for some reason. Nadia's mother recently committed suicide, and that really, affected her mental health and her psychological, obviously. And she got pregnant with the main character's baby, but she didn't want to have a child now. She was only 17. She had an entire life ahead of her. And so she asked him for money for an abortion. And he got the money from his parents, who are the pastor and the first lady of the church, who's responsible basically for keeping the church going. And they give it to him. His mother absolutely hates the girl, by the way, Nadia. And so Nadia gets an abortion, and the whole book kind of kickstarts from there. It follows the characters for years, and it also has this very interesting point of view, which is from the mothers, who are basically these old church ladies who gossip a lot and put their noses where it doesn't belong. And I just found this book to be amazing. I thought it was just so complex, and it actually got church life scarily well. We got it just perfectly accurate. I have a lot to say about this book, but I find that I have a difficult time putting it into words, especially because I have a lot of religious trauma, so I think the 2 things kind of intersected. I really loved this. I had an amazing experience reading it, and I just found this book to be fantastic. I gave The Mothers 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read A Million Words with You by Claudia Gray. This is the finale of the Firebird trilogy. This trilogy is just so much fun. So much fun. It's very fast-paced. I flew through all of the books. They are so much fun. I actually highly recommend it if you want a palate cleanser type of book, you know, if you just want to have a good time. I can't talk much about this one specifically because, again, it's the final book in the trilogy, but the first one, A Thousand Pieces of You, is about this girl Margaret. Her parents are physicists and they created this device that allows you to travel through dimensions. You know, you can go to parallel worlds and universes and such. But the catch is you can only go to universes where you already exist. You, in this case, is the person with the same genetic makeup as you, so the child from the same parents who are both the children of the same parents, and so on and so forth. So basically, again, you from another dimension. And the way the different dimensions form is that everything that could happen does happen. So let's say I woke up today and I can either pick up my phone and go to Twitter, or I can pick up my phone and go to WhatsApp, talk to my boyfriend, or I could just get up and wash my face, or I could get up and go have my breakfast. All these different possibilities, all of them happen at the same time, except all of them are in different universes. That's so confusing to explain. I hope you understood. Universes were just slightly different from your own, but also ones that are completely different because somewhere before your time things happen in a very different way. I am just making this sound way more confusing than it actually is, and it is already confusing. So yeah, the thing that happens is that the device basically transfers your conscience into the body of you from another dimension. So you basically take over the person's body, you know, which when I first heard about that, I was like, that's a bit iffy, isn't it? Because like you're basically taking this person's body without their consent and going about life and doing whatever the fuck, and then when you leave, that person is gonna have to deal with the consequences of your actions. But luckily the book actually talks about those things and it goes into this ethical and moral dilemma. Not as much as I would like, but still it goes into it a lot. Not so much in the first book, but the second one is basically that, you know, it's basically going into those types of things and how, yes, you have an essence that is you and that is present in every single universe, but each one of you is a different person at the end of the day, but you're also the same person, but you're different. The first book starts with Margaret arriving at another dimension to avenge her father's murder, basically. The murderer also has one of the devices and he's been jumping dimensions, and so she's after him so she can kill him. I love these books for what they were. I also really like the book's discussions of fate and probability and all that. I thought it was all very interesting and very fun. I thought the worlds that the main character travels to are so creative, you know, and so well built, I guess. Sometimes the whole love triangle thing got a bit too cheesy for my taste, but overall it didn't hinder my enjoyment of the series. I was expecting a little more from this one, but I don't think it was bad. It just wasn't what I expected. The very end though, like the actual resolution to the whole big conflict, I thought was a bit cheap, but it's fine. The series is not like some revolutionary 100% original, never been done before piece of literature. I think it accomplishes what it set out to do when I think it knows what it is, you know, it doesn't try to be more than it actually is. I really loved it. I had so much fun. It got me out of a reading slump. You know, I did get annoyed at times, but it's fine, and I had a great time. I gave a million words with you 4 out of 5 stars. Next I read The Winterkeep by Claire Eliza Bartlett. Eliza? This was the pick for the Finish That Series book club. Again, information down below. It's about this girl, you know, she's the daughter of a duke, and her duchy, or dookie, I'm gonna go with duchy. Her duchy is very important for the entire kingdom and for all the kingdoms really, because it's the only one that produces magic. You know, there is the kingdom duchy above and there is the below, which is literally below the ice, you know, in the water, and it's in the below that they make magic, essentially. Her family governs above, and they have this kind of connection, this bond with the people below. And so there needs to always be someone of the family in the throne. It can't be someone else, otherwise the bond is broken. And she is one of the Duke's 13 children. And her entire family is very obsessed with power, It's very common for the siblings to try to kill each other so that they can be the Duke. I don't know. The main character, though, doesn't really care about power. She is terrible with politics and all that. But she's very good with biology and science and medicine in general. When she's 16, though, someone casts a curse over her family. And every single person in her family, except for herself, kind of falls into this deep sleep that no one can wake them from, and their lungs are like slowly filling with water, and so she has to sit on the throne and be the Duke, and she's very bad at it. And just to make matters worse, the curse actually befell her family. Befell, is that a word? The curse actually happened in the middle of a bridal game of sorts. Like, many nations sent over a bride or a groom to her brother, who is the next in line, and by the end of these games he would have to choose one of them to become his spouse, basically. And now she has to do it, and there is a lot of political intrigue and court intrigue and just kind of trying to figure out what happened and who cast this curse and what is going on with the kingdom and all that. I thought this was good. I did not think it was amazing. It was fine, I guess. I had a good time, but yeah. One thing that I really liked about it, though, was that queerness was very casual when accepted in this world. Like, it wasn't even something worth noting. The characters that are queer, they just are. No one goes around like, oh, this person who is a lesbian said this, and that. Like, no, it was very casual and well incorporated in the world, which I really appreciated. I thought it was amazing. The main relationship is a sapphic one. I really loved the love interest in this book. I thought she was probably my favorite character in it. But I did get annoyed with the main character. Not because she was bad and ruling, because that made sense and that was expected. But I got really mad at how little she was trying. Like, she barely asked questions in order to try to do the job better, and that just really frustrated me. And I see a lot of people who think that, her not being good with it and her actually being terrible with it was very refreshing and that they really liked it, and I would agree with that if it weren't for the fact that even knowing everything that was at stake, she barely tried at all. It really frustrated me. I thought this was okay. Basically, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Lastly, I read Beyond the Black Door by A.M. Strickland. I actually finished this yesterday. This was the March pick for the Perfectly Queer book club. Information down below. I loved this book. I really, really love this book. This takes place in a world where people are essentially divided into physical body, spirit, and soul. And everyone's souls kind of manifests as a house, essentially. And some people are soul walkers, so they can get into other people's souls. They can get inside a house and look for answers and look for secrets and hidden truths and all that. The main character is kind of a illegal, unregulated soul walker, and so is her mother. Her mother is a sex worker, and I really like the way the book talked about sex work. I thought it was a positive representation, not necessarily in the sense that the sex workers were treated well by the society, but in the sense that when they weren't, it was criticized. The text criticized it. It follows Kamai, who, as I said before, is a unlicensed soul walker. She lives with her mother, her stepfather, and her stepbrother. Her stepfather is also a pleasure worker, and his marriage with her mother is kind of a front, and her mother always teaches her about soul walking and all that, but all in secret because their very existence is illegal. And the soul walkers can only get inside a person's soul when both them and the person are asleep. They call the soul houses Nahim, and they call the place where all the Nahims are the sleeping realm. And Kamai started noticing as a child that everywhere she went in the sleeping realm, this black door followed her. And when she asked her mother about it, her mother only told her to never, under any circumstances, open that black door. But her mother never told her why. She never told her what was behind that door. She only said, don't fucking open it. Which is, you know, don't do that to a child. Obviously, she was gonna open it eventually. But anyway, I found it believable because, you know, sometimes people are stupid. So when Kamai is 17 years old, her mother is murdered and so is her stepfather. And she kind of has to run away to her father's home in the capital. And she starts finding out about all these secrets. There is a lot of court intrigue. There is a very interesting magic system, I guess you could say, and very interesting religion in this world. I really liked the whole history of the gods and all that, and the history of the kingdom. I thought it was so super well done. I adored the world building in this book. I really liked the main character. I mean, it's not really a spoiler. She opens the black door. It happens very early on in the book. And she finds someone behind the black door. And I really loved that character. And I really loved how this book explored this very complicated relationship between Kamai and this character that was behind the black door. I thought it was explored in such an interesting way and such a complex way. You know, it was a very complex relationship, and I don't think the book shied away from it. Also, Kamai is asexual and biromantic, and that actually is very important to the story, and it plays a huge part in the story. And it follows her as she kind of gets to know that side of herself more and understand who she is more. And I really fucking loved it. I'm sorry, this entire video is just a rambling mess, but I barely had any notes written down for any of the books this time. I just wanted to get it done. And this one, as I said, I finished yesterday, so my thoughts are still a bit all over the place. I just know that I loved it, and the live show for that is going to be soon, though I think it's going to happen before I post this video. If it does, I'm going to link it down below so you can watch it. I'm very excited about the live show and to discuss this book with all the people in the chat, especially because I find that discussing books with all the people kind of helps putting my thoughts in order, and it makes me see things that I wouldn't see by myself, if that makes sense. It makes me look at the book from another perspective, which is always, you know, very enlightening and very enriching. But yeah, I've been rambling on for way too long. I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really loved it. Don't think it's gonna be for everyone though, but I personally really loved it. Anyway, I've been filming this for nearly 2 hours now, so I think it's time to wrap this up. Wrap up the wrap up. Come on, move! Come on! Come on, move! Sorry, yelling myself out. Let me know if you've read any of these books, and if you did, let me know what you thought of them. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And if you haven't read them yet, are you interested in picking them up? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, comment and subscribe if you feel like it. And as always, I'll see you around.